I've never heard of anybody else doing and connecting with the energy of the planets in the way you are. I've heard of people with more of an astrological bend to it, but not the planets as a personality or as a directed energy source. So
like when I connect with the planets, they do have like, they feel like a personality to me.
Hey everybody, it's Tanya here. I'm so excited to share an excerpt from my new podcast called Women Working with Light. It is a series of interviews with women from around the world who are doing what they love in service to themselves and to others. In this excerpt, I speak with Kate Shantz, who has a really unique form of channeling. She actually talks to the planets and galactic energies as personalities, and we have a great discussion about that, channeling in general, and also about the new waves of Christ consciousness coming into the planet.
The planet's galactic, or do you use cosmic, or what word do you use?
It's like the planets, yeah, they're like, it's the galactic energy from them, but also like my galactic guides as well. Like,
so the two are working together.
the two are working together. Like they're helping me, from what I can feel, like they're helping me to bring this information through. It almost feels like eventually you could start connecting with like more planets, like maybe planets that like we don't even know about. But so it kind of feels like that's starting to open up. Like I feel like this intentional connection that I'm making with my guides is actually helping to open up like a lot more stuff. So it's exciting. That's just kind of like new for me. Like I feel like I'm seeing like a big expanse of like stars, like it's going to open up a lot more. But yeah, it's like they kind of work together. That's how it's coming through for me.
Well, that's what I'm really curious about, and also as a fellow channel, because I consider myself a conduit. And so going through that period of time where it's kind of like the door is wide open because, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, spiritual world, you've discovered it. You open the door and it's like, please come talk to me. And there's no filters, no boundaries, and you're just letting all of this stuff come in. And so I definitely went through that for a really long time. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I was like, I think this is maybe where this connection to this chronic lifetime illness of being exhausted all the time is coming from. And once I put that together and started creating a very clear boundaries, it rapidly changed my energy. In the past, I've been intentional about who's coming through and being very clear in my boundaries, but allowing them to bring forward whatever message they need. And I act like a conduit. I just let it flow right through. I don't censor anything. So I'm curious, what is it like have more clarity, more refined when you're working with all of these energies together and sort of saying, okay, I need to be very clear about this. And how is that experience for you? And are you finding it making a difference with the readings that you're doing?
Yes. I totally understand what you're saying. Like when you first start opening up to the channeling, it's very exciting. And you're like, yeah, like bring it all in, this and that. But I would find not only would I also get very tired, but it's almost like it was confusing to me or something, if that makes sense. Like it was just sort of random confusion, like obviously messages that are meant to come through, but it was very like, like where do I go? Like, what do I do? I've been working mostly with my galactic family. Like I'll call on them and I'll say, okay, I'm ready. Like I'm open for any messages that you would like to share. And then it's kind of cool because so I can see them, but I can't see faces. Like it's just like their forms, like they're very like skinny bodies and like, but there's no faces. But at the same time, when I call them and I say, okay, what messages do you have for me? I see them all rushing towards me with big, like I can see smiles, like that's all I can see. And they're just so excited. Like it's the cutest thing. Like it really feels like really cute, supportive energy because I feel like they're like, oh, she's calling on us. Okay, yeah, like we're here. Like, and they're like suddenly there, right? And then all the words start coming through. And so I find that it's almost like before when it was all kind of like rushing through, now I find the words come through more slowly to me. Like they're just, their cadence is more slow. And I understand it better. Like it makes, they're more coherent, I guess. And I'm actually finding it the same thing. Like if I were asked like a specific question, you know, like what what should I, as in like, what should I do in this situation or something like that, then I find it's coming through slower and like more coherent. And I actually feel like my connection with them is getting stronger. And like with like the planets, the galactic energy, like just in general, it feels like it's getting stronger to me now. Like I can feel a stronger like tether between us or something. And what I've also been finding is I've been retreating more inward as I've been doing this, but I don't feel alone because they're there. Like my galactic family's there, like the planets, like they're there. Like, I don't know if you find that as a channel too, like you feel like you never feel alone because they're there with you. So I've been finding I've actually been retreating more inward. And I think that's actually helping a lot because there's less outside noise. So it can be like you were saying, like, I love that word conduit, like more of a clear conduit with the, like the information and the messages that they're sharing.
And what I'm also really curious about, again, so many questions. I
love it.
Because I've never heard of anybody else doing and connecting with the energy of the planets in the way you are. I've heard of people with more of an astrological bend to it, but not the planets as a personality or as a directed energy source. So two-part question. So the first is, do they present almost like a complete personality? And the second question is, are you simply channeling, not simply, but are you connecting with the planets of our solar system that are the ones that most people know about, or are you connecting in with, because I know we know that there's more in our solar system and of course outside. So yeah, those are big questions, but let's just see where it goes.
Great questions. So yes, so I definitely, like when I connect with the planets, they do have, like, they feel like a personality to me. Like they feel like Venus feels very loving, like mother energy, like a big hug. Like she feels like a big hug when she comes in. And then with Saturn, like he feels very like, well, I mean, and this is kind of like he, but he does feel like very like no nonsense and to the point, and like, this is what you need to do. And like, it's kind of like a bit different from Venus. And Mercury's energy, he's really fun. He just feels like fun, like he's having a good time. And he's like, I'm seeing him like zipping around all over the place. Like he almost feels like kind of like a young energy to me in a way. Like he's just, yeah, he's having a good time. And then Pluto, like I always see Pluto as like a purple kind of energy. And I mean, Pluto, like he's the planet of like death and rebirth and transformation, like the phoenix rising, like that kind of stuff. So it can be very like, I mean, I love that kind of stuff. Like I love like going deep. So, which is like, yeah, like, right. Like yeah. It's the best. Like, isn't that the best when you can find something to like go deep on? Like, I love that kind of stuff. And like, but he's like actually a very, like, he feels like a grandfather to me. Like he feels like, even though like he talks about serious things, like he's a very like, to me, his personality and energy feels very grandfather-like a grandfather kind of like sitting in his chair, like almost like your chair, like not that I can see, but the big chair, right? Like just kind of sitting there and just like sharing his wisdom, but in like a loving way. Then we've got Jupiter, and he's like the energy of like, like he always comes in and talks about like expansion and like, it's like good things opening up and that kind of stuff. And he kind of feels like a younger energy too, like almost like a teenager. And then we've got Uranus, and he's the planet of like sudden change. And he feels, Uranus energy feels very galactic to me. I mean, the Aquarius sign is ruled by Uranus, and Aquarius is all about like technology and, you know, community and that kind of stuff.
I do not have a lot of astrology knowledge. And I find it fascinating because it's such an entire world of information.
Yeah.
and with its ability to connect the past, and it has alignment with so many people.
Yeah.
And so when you wrap that together with the solar system and all of the things that are going on, not just the planets, but all the galactic bodies, all the stars and all the information and energy that is in between. I love to see how it comes forward, and people that get these types of readings find that they're very, they really encapsulate what they're going through, but also give them sort of almost a container to go, oh yeah, okay, I think I have a bit of understanding on what's going on and some potentials that I could go into. And it's almost like a sense of comfort, I think. And yes. So that's why I'm really fascinated hearing about all the different personalities and seeing all the traits that come here and there and how they all work together.
I've always loved astrology since I was a kid. Like when I found out what my sun sign was, which is Aries, I was like, oh my gosh, like how does this know me? And it I was 8 years old, and it turned something on in me. Then of course I just forget about it. And then it was about maybe 4 years ago or so, someone did my birth natal chart for me. And it was exactly like you were saying. When I saw this chart, I'm like, how did the stars know me so well? This is literally me. And then I became obsessed with learning astrology and all that. And so it was interesting because it's something that I was self-learning on my own, because it was really interesting to me. But then it started to come in this different way, this channeling way with the planets. It became something so different than what I thought it was going to be. I thought, okay, I'm just learning the ins and outs of astrology, and okay, this is in my 12th house, and that's what this means. I still love learning about that, but it's kind of cool. You just never know. I could never have imagined that this would start to happen, where all of a sudden the planets are appearing. I had no idea. And I know you asked about too, other planets, and that's actually something I'm excited about, because it started out my channeling with the core planets, which are the core planets that are used in Western astrology. Mm-hmm. But I've been connecting lately in with Sirius, and I've been getting channeled messages from Sirius. And what's actually been really cool with the information that's coming through from him, I don't know, he just feels like a him to me. I mean, I know we have Sirius A, Sirius B, but it feels very Christ consciousness to me, that energy that's coming through. And I've actually, I actually had a dream. Sirius was in my dream the other, last week. And my dog, Briar, and I, because I know that my soul originated from Sirius, and I know that hers did too, my dog's, she's my furry soulmate. So anyway, we were in a field, and all of a sudden I look up, and there's Sirius, but he's got a big cross over him. And then this cross started to slowly come down to me, and I held out my hands, and then I put it to my heart. And I just feel he's been here to share a lot of messages with me about this whole idea of Christ consciousness coming back online. I feel for humanity, especially now that we're going into the age of Aquarius, which is really fascinating to me.
Maybe you could share a bit about that for others like myself who aren't entirely sure what that means.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. And this is cool, because I just started kind of reading about it and getting information about it within the last year. We were in the age of Pisces for the last 2,000 years, but now we've moved into the age of Aquarius. And so when we read all the stories about Jesus, he was a person like you and me. He's a man walking around or whatever, right? And so I can't really speak a lot about the Bible, because that's something that I'm just coming around to, this whole idea, because that's something that's been a big, I've rejected the church and its teachings really my whole life. It's just something that's been inherent in me, that I rejected the teachings, I rejected the systems, all that kind of stuff. So I never really learned about it. I just never really wanted to go there. But what I'm now understanding is because I've been learning a lot more about like Jesus and his teachings, and really that piece about unconditional love and community and, being one with each other, and we can heal ourselves, and like all of these kind of ideas that he talked about is coming back in the form of like a consciousness, because I think this is sort of what I've gotten from it. In the Bible, there was like, they would talk or write about how Jesus would rise again. And I always took that to be like, okay, they believe like the man will like come back and be walking around again. But I actually feel that with now the age of Aquarius, it's bringing back the Christ consciousness to the planet. And it's more of like a consciousness that is being, as more and more people wake up, like I'm seeing it kind of like enter into our heads like a golden stream. And I've been feeling it around me so much, this Christ consciousness, like, but really around the piece around unconditional love and loving ourselves and healing ourselves and being one and brothers and sisters with each other and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's definitely true. And I think it's maybe it's just a comfort level, where people have an experience. And of course, the human ego wants to put a label on it for more understanding.
Yeah.
So some people, I think, will go towards Christ consciousness perhaps because they've grown up with Christianity and that feels comfortable. Some people, I think, go into it more from a spiritual bend, which is the self-improvement, self-love route. But ultimately, you see that same, like this is something I say about anything, right? Where we all have a different interpretation, there's different energy, different ways of presentation. But somewhere in there for you is a thread that you will see repeated again and again and again. And if you follow that thread, then there's a line of truth there.
Yes.
That is consistent through everything.
Yeah.
Such as with all religions, there's like 3 or 4 tenets that you will see in all religions, and that for me is where my energy is gone. It's more into where is that thread that we see throughout everything. It is learning to love yourself. There is unconditional love. There is learning to love those around you, being respectful of yourself and the planet, and understanding that everything is interconnected.
Yes.
And I love that you see these teachings across the board. And it is interesting to see that this is all coming together. And I like the description that you gave of that Christ consciousness and relating it to that, because I haven't really thought of it in that way before. And that makes a lot of sense.
I hope you enjoyed this excerpt from my conversation with Kate Shantz. You can find the full interview over at podcast.tanyaqc.com and more episodes of Women Working with Light. It's a great place to get resources, connect with others, and learn some information you might not have heard of before. Thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Please do like, share, and subscribe. And hey, take a moment, leave a comment. You never know who you might be helping by sharing some information. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.